Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of GodSaw's Turnbuckle, the wrestling video podcast I run over here on youtube.com/UC Campbell, aka channel GodSaw over here. Of course, I've been putting up gameplay videos for at least a little bit this week of Street Fighter 30th Anniversary Collection. I do have a few more videos of that, also a few other things coming up along the way as well that have been edited, just got to be uploaded up. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about the week in wrestling. And well, in the terms of newsworthy sides, there was one piece of newsworthy that was extreme newsworthy. That's high profile within at least wrestling side of everything. And there was also another small little snippet, which I'll start off with the small little snippet, then we'll get into the large one. So the small snippet of news that happened, because it's unfortunate, but it's also not huge. So apparently, as of yesterday or Friday, I forget which day it was actually on when the news came out, they have announced the release of Zeta from NXT. If you did not really know Zeta all that much, I think she did maybe one show on NXT TV, but she also appeared in the Mae Young Classic as Shayna Baszler's first opponent in the first round. So apparently she's been released from the NXT contract and everything. So that's unfortunate to hear, but we haven't. It's not huge because you don't know much about that, about what was going on or anything on that side. Was her training not going all that well, or are they starting to trim are they basically starting to trim off a few people that they just don't want at this point in time? I don't know what the release means, but apparently she did take to an Instagram post saying that she is going to continue wrestling, so that's good to note. So you can probably take a look out for her at some point in time on the independent circuit, and we'll see if there's been a lot of different improvement or anything else going at that point in time. So we'll see where she ends out landing, or if she does continue wrestling. Looks like she is going to, so that's cool. The other piece of news to talk about this week is going to be I believe Dr. Chris Amon from WWE, the Doctor of WWE, and the trial with him and CM Punk, the defamation lawsuit that he had filed against CM Punk, basically for what he had done with the Colt Cabana podcast a long time ago, back in 2014. It was in November of 2014 at that time, and so basically they've done 4 days of trial. I believe it started on Tuesday. Jury's been selected, trial has started, testimonies have been done, and a lot of testimonies have actually been done. They had people with the Bell Keeper, who's also, I believe, one of the different producers, who's also in the ear with a few different people in the back. He kind of went over everything that was going on, and what he knew and everything to go along with it. Of course, Dr. Amon, I believe, got on the stand as well. Another WWE doctor got on the stand to go along with it. Or he didn't actually get on the stand, but he did a video testimony, and so did Kane. Glenn Jacobs, he did a video testimony. That's kind of understandable because of the factors of him running for mayor. He probably wouldn't be able to get out there into where the courtroom was for the two of them at this point in time. Colt Cabana got on the stand as well. You had CM Punk on the stand. A lot of interesting things were talked about. They do go over the whole aspect of going over the Royal Rumble match and what they would typically do for that particular match for 2014, where CM Punk received the concussion. They did talk about the staph infection that CM Punk had says he has had. Of course, Dr. Amon refutes even knowing about it, but the way Punk had always told it, he had asked for this to be lanced multiple times, never did end up happening in the back and everything to go along with it. A lot of these things of course, the testimonies and everything, and how do you believe everything, and how is the jury believing everything, and to go along with it, and a lot of, and basically them also talking about like the podcast itself and the whole defamation thing, the whole defamation that Dr. Amon says CM Punk did by doing this podcast, and everything to go along with that. An interesting note got put in there is that Dr. Amon does not feel like he has lost any money through any of this. He doesn't feel like he's that any of the guys in the back look at him any differently. It was more of the embarrassment from the fans that he had gotten, and how people were treating him at that point in time over the internet, which is an interesting tactic to use within a courtroom at this point in time, but we'll see that ends out working. A lot of like, I can't go over everything at this point in time because I can't remember everything at this moment in time, and the whole but like the whole transcripts of like the morning and the afternoon ones was covered in great detail over on WrestleZone. Actually, WrestleZone was covering each day. They gave them a good bullet points of each person's testimony. Some of them a lot shorter, some of them a lot longer to go along with it. And if you do want to check out the testimonies and like the good bullet points that they put on there, covered in pretty good detail, like I said, by WrestleZone on this one. I think it's actually worth going over there and taking a look at it. If you're interested in finding out how this trial is going, or at least how you feel like it's going at this point in time, and where they're going to go, where they will probably be going with everything. I expect more stuff to be coming up on Monday, because I believe they don't do court over the weekend. Hello, the Batman. How you doing? The Batman enters the chat cave. Yes, we do call it the chat cave over here. But yeah, if you do want to check all that stuff out with CM Punk and everything to go along with that, on that trial, WrestleZone's been covering it pretty well, on a daily basis. So yeah, if you do want to check that out, I would highly recommend it. So, news is pretty much out of the way at this point in time. And yeah, there's nothing else. There was one other little piece of thing that came out. If you really want to watch it, I don't recommend it. I watched it. It's 5 minutes of a waste of your time because he can't rap and he doesn't have very good rhymes either. He doesn't have very good rhymes, but Enzo Amore, or as he's calling himself now, Real One, did release a rap video this week. Basically, it was a diss track, a diss track, a diss track of basically everything on wrestling and what had happened with him. The lyrics they weren't very good. His ability, the production of the video was actually very, very good on there, but like his lyrics, I don't think was very good. His rapping ability wasn't great either. I don't recommend it. I think it's 5 minutes of a waste of your time at that point, at that moment in time. But I did see it, and because I was interested, it's like, okay, let's see how this goes. And I immediately regretted it. So, is what it is. Is what it is at that point in time. So, with us getting by the news and everything, let's roll into Raw, SmackDown, NXT for this week. So Raw this week, I believe, was on May 28th. Yes, it was May 28th this week for Monday Night Raw. It started out with Braun Strowman coming down there, cutting his promo on Money in the Bank, basically calling himself Monster in the Bank and what he's going to, cash in on Brock Lesnar. Cashing in on Brock Lesnar, he gets immediately interrupted by Finn Balor, basically trying to just refute him every step of the way and saying that I do like how Finn continually brings up the fact that he never lost the Universal title. Matter of fact, he hasn't had a Universal title match since coming back, so he's technically not lost it ever in any way, shape, or form. So he refutes to the everything. Oh, no. Yes. Yes, Batman did just make it in time. and basically kind of refutes everything, says he's going to win Money in the Bank. The thing I liked about this segment is that he decides to just go off and slap the crap out of Braun Strowman. Strowman just takes Finn and tosses him as high as he can across the ring. This does bring out Kurt Angle to basically make Finn Balor and Braun Strowman a match right then and there. The match between Finn and Braun, I thought was a pretty good match. It was an interesting note, and I felt like it was a little bit forced, but you know, Kevin Owens on a microphone in any way, shape, or form is great. And he was on commentary for this match while going through everything, but he would also interrupt certain points in the match where he would start agging on Braun Strowman or agging on Finn Balor. It was some good stuff there. A little bit, like I said, a little bit forced, a little bit random to a certain degree. And the match between the two of them was wasn't as good as last week's match between the two of them, but they were kind of just going off with everything they had done over the last couple of weeks with both Finn Balor and Braun Strowman at this point in time. Like I said, pretty decent match. It ends out in DQ with Finn Balor winning when Kevin Owens does interfere as Finn's going for the coup de grace again. And he ends out laying out Finn Balor with a ladder. He goes to get Braun Strowman. Braun Strowman catches him and gets chased, and he starts running away, chased away. And Braun Strowman just takes the ladder and decides to chuck it all the way up the rampway. It was great. It was great stuff. Some pretty good stuff there. I did like what they decided to do with this. Afterwards, Kevin Owens does try to leave. He's like egging on a valet guy to get a particular car, even though he doesn't have a ticket, but he's forcing him to get it. So he's trying to steal a car to get out of there. Kurt Angle comes in and informs them that you're not going anywhere. You have a match tonight against Bobby Roode because of the comments you made on commentary towards Bobby Roode. So again, setting up for a match later on in the evening. Let's see here. Up next, we'll kind of go through all of this right now. Because it wasn't, because it was, these were pretty good. I didn't mind these ones. You did have iPhone style promos from Sasha Banks, Dana Brooke, and the Riot Squad, and Mickie James, all on the gauntlet match for later on in the evening. Sasha Banks, of course, saying that the contract already has her name on it, everything on that side. So she's proclaiming she's winning the gauntlet, winning the contract, everything on that side. Basically, Dana Brooke with like a whiteboard of statistics and formulas, saying that she's figured out the formula and the statistical and the statistics to win the match. The Riot Squad basically tearing up everybody's clothing in the backstage and going through some of their bags. There was some pretty good stuff inside of there, on there. And Mickie James kind of playing more of a face tonight because she was in her hometown. And basically cutting her promo saying that she was going to win as well. So some decent stuff there, setting up for the gauntlet match later on in the evening, which we will talk about a little bit later. Up next, we have Elias in the ring. This was some really good stuff. He continued wanting to sing throughout the entire segment. And the great thing about this segment is the whole aspect that he would go to the sound guy or go to the lighting person. It's like, you know what, typically this lighting and ambiance is good enough, but not tonight. I just don't want to see anything out there. So he wants the spotlight to be brought in closer to him so he can't see anything outside of the spotlight. He also is like to the sound guys, like, my vocals need to be a little bit higher. Let's go with this, you know, proclaiming he has to do everybody's job and go along with it. They eventually cut the commercial break. He hasn't sang yet or anything. They come back. He's still agging on the crowd, which is, it's some good stuff. I like this, which does prompt Seth Rollins to come out and basically interfere and have him not necessarily escorted out of the arena, but it just says like, it's time for my match, please leave, which he does, which does set up towards Seth Rollins and Jinder Mahal. Jinder Mahal wins this match by disqualification. This was a pretty good match, actually. You know, Seth Rollins and Jinder Mahal, I thought, put on a pretty good match here. Good back and forth action between both of them. The interference of Sunil Singh a lot throughout the match as well, I thought was pretty good. And of course, Sunil Singh even gets to the point of getting tossed out. During that time, Jinder Mahal uses a chair against Seth Rollins. Sunil Singh comes back out and starts causing more distraction. Eventually, Seth has had enough and just goes off and waylays Jinder Mahal with the chair, causing the disqualification. And he chases off Mahal, as he does lay out Sunil Singh as well with this one. So as he's celebrating on the announce table, Elias comes back out, nails him into the nails Seth Rollins with the guitar in the back. Seth Rollins falls off into the little pit area right by the entrance ramp, and eventually they cut to commercial break. They cut back out to commercial break here. They're trying to get him out on a stretcher. Seth Rollins refusing to do so. Walks off with a little bit of help from the referees and everything, but pretty good stuff. I did like this, and I think they did announce it a little bit later in the week that Seth Rollins and Elias are going to have a match at Money in the Bank for the Intercontinental title. Also, they can continue on with something here with maybe Jinder Mahal and Seth Rollins as well afterwards, based off the fact that Jinder Mahal did win this match by disqualification, or they'll do something with him on this one. I would imagine that he's going to have some kind of match because he has his match with Roman Reigns, who wasn't on this show, by the way, who wasn't on this show, and if you really play off of what he's been saying, it goes against everything that they really say about Roman Reigns. He's here every week, blah blah blah, and then he's not here a week to go along with it. And another funny note on this one is that there's a portion of the crowd that was singing happy birthday to Seth Rollins, because it was Seth Rollins' birthday. So as he was getting as they were trying to stretcher him out, you had people singing happy birthday to him, which was a pretty interesting little tidbit there. Up next we had Nia Jax going up. I believe they did call her Michelle Webb. I have her down as local town, but I think Corey Graves didn't call her Michelle Webb at one point. Ronda Rousey does come out to do commentary on this match. And throughout the entire match, basically Nia's cutting a promo and just going off on the local talent the entire time. Matter of fact, even really playing it up is that she was kind of bullying her. I wonder what is weird about this one. I wonder what's really weird about that one based off of what they're doing, and based off of what they just had Nia Jax do. I find that a little bit weird that they would go that route that quickly. I feel like they could have possibly done something a little bit more interesting with this one, without maybe necessarily going to the fact that Nia's going full heel and kind of being a bully about it throughout the entire time, saying it's like, oh, the armbar is not going to have any effect on me, which is kind of weird because she's technically tapped out to it twice, once to Becky Lynch and once to Asuka. Kind of weird that they'll play that, but okay, we'll go with it, I guess, because she does, and you can even play it off of the whole aspect that, it's different when Ronda does it versus some person who doesn't really have that type of experience and everything to go along with it. I did like the little snippet that they put in there that, like, Ronda comes down to the ring afterwards, because she eventually calls her down to the ring after basically repeatedly squashing the local talent over and over again. Ronda comes down, and like she gives her that death stare glare, and it's like, oh, is that the look? Oh, am I supposed to be intimidated? Like, she was playing this whole thing up as like, oh, I'm supposed to be intimidated by this. No, you don't look intimidating at all, or anything to go along with it. And basically saying she's gonna crush her at Money in the Bank. Decent stuff. Interesting that I thought the execution of it was good in the terms of the dialogue and everything, but it's interesting that they would go this route with Nia Jax so quickly after she had basically gone through a storyline where she was being bullied and doing the whole, being upbeat and being a good role model and everything on that side. And it's immediately, without really any hesitation, like, yeah, we'll go this way with it. We'll go with this way with it now. But that's kind of where they're going with it now. So we'll see how this one completely plays off. Up next, you had Woken Matt Hardy and Bray Wyatt going up against the Ascension. Decent match. Matt Hardy and Bray Wyatt going over. I like their in-ring chemistry with what they're doing now, but I want to see more. But really, at this moment in time, they're not doing much of anything with them. They're not really doing promo stuff with them. They're not doing anything on that side. But the in-ring stuff, I think, is pretty good with what they're doing. I do like the whole kiss of deletion as their finisher. I think they're calling it kiss of deletion, or they're calling it something else to go along with it. So I'm liking things like that, but I want to like, a lot of this stuff is promo heavy, especially with Matt Hardy. And we're not seeing much of that. They're just kind of having match after match after match right now, and not really doing much other than that. I guess they're kind of waiting to see who their tag team opponents are going to be, which more than likely, with the way that it's going and with the next backstage segment, is going to be the B, might be the B team. So we have Angle backstage with the B team. They want a tag team title match. Kurt's basically saying no. These are little snippets I liked, because you had Curtis Axel trying to do this whole, like, he's thinking out loud type thing, where he is literally saying bad things about Kurt Angle out loud, but should only be in his head at this point in time. And I just love how Kurt's like, I can hear you right now. And Curtis Axel is just oblivious to the fact that Kurt's even saying any of this stuff. Bo Dallas eventually says, you know what? So we have to convince everybody that we deserve a tag team title shot. And he goes over to Curtis Axel and it's like, are you thinking what I'm thinking? It's like, yeah, no, because I've lost track of thought because of Kurt Angle snubbing us for because of Kurt Angle's, like, bad decision of snubbing us from a tag team title match. And it's like, Kurt again was like, I can hear you. And it's like, just this whole aspect is like, and Bo Dallas basically says, we're going to do a barbecue and convince everybody. It's like, again, I'm not saying this. And they just walk off. Like, they're completely oblivious to everything Kurt's saying to them, which is pretty good stuff. I thought it was pretty good stuff. Up next, since we did kind of go through all the promos before the gauntlet, we had Bobby Roode going up against Kevin Owens. Again, Kevin Owens going over in this match, which I thought was a pretty decent match between the two of them. Kevin Owens winning with a roll-up in the end. And of course, Kevin Owens is kind of wary throughout the entire time. Is Braun going to come out or anything on that side? He doesn't come out during the match. He looks like he's going to get off scot-free, everything on that side. And then, lo and behold, Braun Strowman comes out as Kevin Owens is leaving. And basically chases down Kevin Owens, throws him in the ring, does the body check, the running body check at him, does 2 power slams. All this time, by the way, Bobby Roode is just cheering him on, doing this. And of course, that leads to Bobby Roode also eating a power slam, because you don't stay around Braun Strowman. What happened? What happened in the past when a guy who's going around doling out finishers to everybody? Even the faces would get the finisher. Lo and behold, that's what happens here. Bobby Roode gets power slam for his trouble. And it was basically saying every man for themselves, not going to team up with anybody. Up next, we had Sami Zayn coming out to do an apology for last week's segment. We'll leave it at that. That segment with Bobby Lashley's sisters. He does, I like how he plays it off. It's like, yes, I hired them, everything on that side. And some people found it offensive, and I apologize. And I like how in the end, though, in the end of this, basically he still runs down the crowd and Bobby Lashley. He runs down Bobby Lashley. He runs down the crowd. He even kind of runs down saying, it's like, I deserve better. I deserve more. I deserve Intercontinental title shots. I deserve to be in the Money in the Bank. Everything on that side is like, you should be apologizing to me. to go along with it. This eventually does bring out Bobby Lashley, who, again, I love how it's like he just treats Sami Zayn as like he's nothing, which is kind of weird as a babyface. Is like he's kind of amused by Sami Zayn and what he does and how he acts and everything to go along with it. And then of course he's smiling throughout the whole thing, and then kind of goes to serious mode and says like, let's settle this the proper way with a match. And of course, Sami Zayn's trying to kind of run it down, but he accepts the match. They shake hands, and they just keep shaking hands. And eventually, Lashley does that hand crushing bit when you shake hands, where where he squeezes really hard, and Sami Zayn's trying so hard to get him to laugh at everything by his reactions, because he goes so over the top with it. I liked what he did. I liked what he did. They do make the whole aspect. They do throw the whole aspect that he does say that Sami Zayn never contacted his sisters, but he even goes out there and says as well, it's like, but they found you amusing. They did. They really did. Like I said, it was a decent enough segment. It's kind of weird how they have. Bobby Lashley going at this point in time. It's kind of weird that he feels like just one of the guys again. It's one of those bits. He doesn't really feel too special on there right now. So who knows what they're actually going to be doing with him? Of course, last week's segment was what it was. We'll leave it at that. Up next, we had Drew McIntyre going up against Chad Gable. This is a continuation of last week after Chad Gable's match with Dolph Ziggler. Drew McIntyre gave him a Claymore kick right after the match, so they have a match this week. This was a pretty good match as well. McIntyre looks impressive in this match, basically throwing around Chad Gable throughout the match. Gable does get some stuff going on into this match as well, and I thought it was pretty good stuff to go along with it. I thought it was a decent enough match. McIntyre does go over with Claymore kick again. Like I said, looking pretty impressive inside of this match with what the moves he did. Gable selling when he would get thrown like a very long distance and everything. I did like this, and McIntyre looked really good, but again, like, there was really no outside of last week. You had to remember last week's stuff, and they don't even show a quick video of that or anything to kind of remind people about it. So I think there were some people's like, oh, just random match, okay. But I thought it was a pretty good, like I said, I thought it was pretty good. It was pretty decent. Up next was the B Team, the B Team Barbecue. They basically have all the tag teams out there. They have bologna sandwiches, bratwurst, hot dogs. I love how, I do like how, Bo Dallas was like, he was putting Bo in front of everything again, like he had done a long time ago, like the whole Believe thing. So it's like, so Curtis Axel was basically saying baked beans and bratwurst, and then Bo Dallas is like, and we have potato chips and Bo dogs. And I think this was an unintentionally funny throughout the entire bit. And Rhino's reactions are priceless in this one. This was a decent comedy segment, and semi makes up for last week where they were trying their thing with Bobby Lashley. It wasn't that great, though. I mean, the segment itself wasn't that great. Of course, eventually all of them was like, so they were trying to convince them that's like, oh, we deserve the tag team title shot. None of them agreed, of course. This eventually, of course, what happens when there's food around with WWE? Food fight. It happens. It just happens. And that happens here. I think Bo Dallas had baked beans put over his head, and then I think Curtis Axel had the potato salad put over his head as well. Eventually it leads to a brawl. They all exit the ring. Rhino's the only one left in the ring. He throws the sandwiches out to out into the crowd area, and eventually does get put through a table by Bo Dallas and Curtis Axel. So that's how they ended the segment. Ended a little bit weird, but was what it was. Yes, Bo dogs. He called them. They're hot dogs. They're hot dogs, but he called them Bo dogs. Another little snippet, and I love this one. I love this one about Titus O'Neil and Apollo Crews. So, like Titus O'Neil basically starts complaining about the food, saying that there's no seasoning, there's no this, and then all of a sudden you just hear in the background, and he doesn't even have a microphone. You hear it a little bit on the microphone, but uh, you have Apollo Crews basically saying there's no ribs, and then you have Titus going, yeah, no ribs, no macaroni and cheese, yeah, no macaroni and cheese. Where's all? This is some good stuff. This is some good comical stuff. I did actually enjoy this segment a bit. Now, there's one downside to all of this. Some of these matches and some of these in this segment to go along with it. It took down the runtime of the main event probably a little bit more than it needed to, because I felt like the women's gauntlet match probably needed a little bit more time, maybe to put over some more of the talent in some way, shape, or form. I will basically go, like, let's go over the whole gauntlet match. So basically, Bayley does come out first. She cuts a promo saying that she's gonna run the entire table, and she cuts a pretty decent quick promo on everybody, including Sasha to finish it off, basically saying she was gonna win the match. Everything to go along with that. It starts off with Liv Morgan. It's straight to the finish. It's a straight to the finish type one where Bayley hits Bayley in the belly. It's over with. Liv Morgan's still outside the ring. Sarah Logan comes out. They have a little bit of a back and forth for about a minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes. It might have been 3. I don't know. But eventually leading to, and it was a pretty decent one. But eventually leading to Bayley rolling up Sarah Logan and picking up the victory. Liv Morgan jumps back into the ring after the match with Sarah Logan. She attacks Bayley. They leave her line, and of course, Ruby Riott comes out next. They cut the commercial break on this one as Ruby Riott was coming out. They do come back, so they had started between Bayley and Ruby Riott at that point in time. So I guess there was some back and forth. We didn't see everything on that side. When they do come back, it was pretty quick. Bayley gets a little bit of offense in, but Ruby Riott throws her off the top rope and then hits the Riot kick on Bayley to pick up the victory. Up next was Dana Brooke. This one was also rather quick and a little bit of back and forth between them. And then but eventually Dana Brooke gets eliminated by the Riot kick as well. Up next was Mickie James, and this is where it actually gets a little bit better. They gave it a little bit more time, because a lot of what I just said there happened in pretty quick succession in terms on TV. I think the runtime of the match was like 21 minutes or something like that. That a lot of that happened within about 6 or 7 minutes at that point in time. At least it felt like that. It might have been 10. I don't know. Mickie James and Ruby Riott, I thought they put on a pretty good match, making it look like Mickie was potentially going to go off to the final match and everything. But eventually, when Mickie was going to go for the big DDT, her Mickie DDT, Ruby Riott counters it and pulls the tights, gets the roll up, and gets the victory, which brings out Sasha Banks. So at this point, you had basically she was kind of doing the running through everybody, of course, and this is kind of the same formula as they used last time, which is kind of weird for a gauntlet match. Usually the babyface has to make the long run, and then they come up short or something like that. But they've done this with the women's gauntlet twice now, where the heel kind of goes for the long run, and then Sasha comes out and gets the victory. They do that here as well. I felt like they did some pretty good stuff with both Sasha and Ruby Riott. The corner knee that she did to Ruby Riott, where she had their head in there, where they typically do the super kick, but with Sasha, she did the knee. I thought was pretty good. Into the powerbomb. That was some pretty good stuff. I thought the match between Ruby and Sasha was pretty good on that side of everything. I thought the last 2 matches, they gave it time. Otherwise, it felt very rapid fire throughout the entire match. Eventually, towards the end, after the powerbomb, Sasha does get the bank statement after the kick out. Liv Morgan, and Sarah Logan come down. She chases She chases or hits them off the ring apron. Ruby gets a roll up, but it gets countered into a bank statement. Ruby taps, and Sasha's going on to Money in the Bank. So, like I said, I thought the match itself was pretty decent. I thought it was a little bit rapid fire, and they could have probably done a little bit better of a job of maybe building up somebody if they were trying to build up a Ruby Riott, or give a babyface a little bit longer of a run in the match, which I don't really felt like they did in this one. That's like really the only downside to it. Otherwise, I thought the story of what they were doing inside of there was a pretty decent one. I like this. I do kind of like that setup at the beginning with Bailey going, trying to go rapid fire and trying to beat all of the Riott Squad, but she falls a little bit short when the Riott Squad does attack her before Ruby Riott gets out there. Thought that was pretty decent. The stuff with Ruby Riott's run, I thought was pretty decent as well. Her match with Becky and Sasha, I thought were pretty good. So overall, it was a pretty good match. I just wish they would have given it a little bit more time. That's about it. That's about it on that side of everything. So that was Monday Night Raw this week. And yeah, like I said, Monday Night Raw was kind of ho-humish, but it wasn't bad. It was not a bad show by any stretch of the imagination. I thought it was pretty decent. So let's roll into SmackDown on May 29th, 2018. I thought this show was actually very, very good and very entertaining in certain areas, but also some really good matches going on inside of this show as well. It starts off with Samoa Joe. And he basically comes out, he grabs a ladder immediately and takes down the briefcase, proclaiming and cutting a promo how he's going to win Money in the Bank, that he's going to win Money in the Bank and everything. He starts running down everything and running down his match with Daniel Bryan and running down Daniel Bryan a bit. This does prompt Daniel Bryan to come out, and it looks like he starts basically cutting a promo on him about winning the match that night, but making it also look like he gotten like agged on because Samoa Joe brings up his family, everything on that side. So of course Daniel Bryan makes it look like we're gonna have main event right now. We want to just screw waiting. We're doing it right now. Big Cass comes out. He's walking with a crutch and everything, but he's cutting a promo saying, you know, this was my opportunity. I deserve to be in this match, and that this is the match that's going to happen. It's going to be him and Joe when I'm cleared. By the way, I'm cleared. He lays out Samoa Joe with a crutch and beats down Daniel Bryan as well, leaving them both lying after a Money in the Bank briefcase shot as well. So some pretty decent stuff. I thought it was a pretty decent opening segment. I liked the intensity from Joe and from Daniel Bryan, making it look like we were just going to get the main event right then and there. The Cass stuff getting interrupted, I thought was pretty good as well. As they were going to commercial break, you actually saw, I love this little snippet as well. You saw Nakamura backstage with signs counting 1 to 10, like doing the last man standing stuff, but also when he hit 10, because he was facing Ty Dillinger next, he tears it all up because he's gonna beat down Ty Dillinger in his match tonight. When they come back from commercial break, you actually have Paige backstage. She's kind of trying to figure out where things were going to go after the segment that they did with Samoa Joe and everything to go along with that. They run into Sonya Deville and Mandy Rose, and it's like, and they start like taunting Paige, you know, things are going out of control and you're making bad decisions. I mean, come on, we're not in Money in the Bank or anything to go along with that. Or it's like, why does Asuka get an opportunity? Was she done lately? It's like, well, you get to find out. And she makes a match with Mandy Rose and Asuka for later in the night. As she's continually going on, she gets Renee Young comes up, does a quick interview with her about what just happened. It's like, well, I didn't know Samoa Joe was going to do that, but we're going to do this. And she goes like, she's right. Daniel Bryan deserves a match with Joe. And so does Big Cass. So what do? We make it a triple threat. We get a triple threat for later in the evening, so we don't get Samoa Joe and Daniel Bryan on free TV, at least not in a one-on-one match. We do get a little snippets of it during the triple threat, which we'll talk about later. The match with Ty Dillinger and Shinsuke Nakamura, this was good storytelling. This was great. I like this is a moment I think Ty Dillinger kind of showed he has a lot of potential if they want to run with him at all. Because there was some decent back and forth here, but there were some nice storytelling moments. Shinsuke basically wanting to count to 10 and have him being like showing that he is going to knock out everybody going into his match with AJ Styles in a last man standing match. But Ty Dillinger keeps getting up. At one point, he gets the 9, and then Ty gets up and does the 10. Does 10 to him. He dodges it and does like a come on to Shinsuke Nakamura, firing him up a bit. Shinsuke eventually does get the victory with the Kinshasa. But some good, like I said, some good storytelling stuff here. Afterwards, he does one more Kinshasa to the back of the head, Ty Dillinger, and does the 10 count, signifying that he will be the last man standing. Up next, we had a quick AJ Styles interview on that last man standing match as well, and what he had just done. He's like, yeah, I just saw what Shinsuke did to Ty Dillinger and what he can do. But that's not going to mean anything in the end to him, because he knows how to keep fighting, and he's going to be the last man standing. So pretty good interview, pretty good stuff, pretty good promo. Up next, you had Lana and Naomi in a dance-off. First of all, I like this little snippet of it. So Lana does come out with Aiden English and Rusev. And it looks like Naomi was just going to come out on her own, but then the Usos come out, and it was kind of like the Usos and Aiden English and Rusev were doing the whole aspect of getting in everyone's face after someone did their dance, which both of them did a pretty good job on the dance and everything on that side. And then they do a dance together, and then Lana attacks Naomi, which eventually leads to a big brawl from everybody. I thought it was a decent enough segment. I'm not always the biggest fan of dance-offs or anything on that side, but the way that it came off in the end came off fairly entertaining. I thought it was pretty decent. It was a decent enough segment. It didn't feel like it was just like, oh, we don't know what to do, dance off. No, they came up with stuff, and I thought it was pretty good. And it leads to a six-person mixed tag match next week between Aiden English, Rusev, and Lana going up against the Usos and Naomi, so that might be pretty good as well. Up next, we had the New Day going up against Miz, Cesaro, and Sheamus, and I've got to go off and say this beforehand. The little segment they did backstage with Sheamus and Miz and Cesaro was fantastic, because like you have Miz with that headband on, and he has it over his eyes, and they're throwing pancakes at the Miz, and he's doing like karate chops at him. I don't know who wrote the segment, or if they just came up with it on their own and just filmed it and just did it. It was great. It was fantastic. I loved it. And the match with the New Day and them, this was a great match. It really was. I thought it was a great way of going with this one. Good back and forth, people busting, like Kofi Kingston, doing things that he doesn't typically do. He does like he does a springboard up to the top rope, jumps to the post, and then jumps off the ring post into Sheamus and Cesaro. Xavier Woods doing a lot of good things inside of there as well. Like good teasings of finishes without it being like, oh, here comes the finish. But they didn't hit the finisher or anything, but then someone makes the save and everything on that side. I love this match. A good 6-man match here. New Day does eventually pick up the victory with Big E hitting the big ending, I believe, on Miz. I forget off the top of my head right now. I don't fully remember everything at that moment. But overall, extremely good match. Very entertaining match to watch. A very good TV match. And up next, we had a interview from the club, basically talking about their talking about their tag team title match at Money in the Bank with the Bludgeon Brothers. They eventually get interrupted with the Bludgeon Brothers on the TV. They cut a promo and, of course, hit the TV with the hammers afterwards as well. Decent enough thing, and kind of setting up towards that tag team title match. Up next, we had Mandy Rose and Asuka. Pretty good match. So Sonya Deville attacks Asuka before the match, and Asuka stumbles into the ring. It's like, it doesn't matter. I can still fight. I'm here to fight, and we're gonna fight. So you had Asuka having to fight the uphill battle while Carmella's on commentary, basically saying how she's gonna win at Money in the Bank, everything on that side of it. Good back and forth in this match as well towards the end. You have Mandy Rose kind of holding her own with the offense and everything in this match, and I thought it came off pretty good. I thought this one came off pretty good. Of course, in the end, Asuka does put on the Asuka lock and make Mandy Rose tap out. Carmella gets into the ring afterwards, and of course, during this time is like she beat Charlotte Flair twice, and Charlotte beat Asuka, and ending the undefeated streak. And it's like, so she's always like, she continually says she's twice as good as Asuka at this time. She gets into the ring and puts the raises the title in front of Asuka's face. They have a stare down, kind of decent. I like this one. I thought it was pretty good. Up next, you had Charlotte and Becky Lynch backstage cutting a promo. Now, this is right after the match. So Charlotte was saying, it's like, oh, I can see it now. Asuka's gonna win. I'm gonna win Money in the Bank and WrestleMania rematch right there. Everything on that side. And I love how Becky was playing. It's like she just takes a look. It's like, no, you're looking at a wall right now. Because she's saying, looking into the future, and it's like Becky's like, no, you're looking at a wall. You need to look a little bit more left. Yeah, more left. You're seeing the Money in the Bank winner, and they start having a little bit of back and forth, and you just see Paige in the background, just lurking in the background, and then eventually she comes into the 4-shot, and was like, and it was kind of a reunion of their team and everything, and eventually she makes a match between Charlotte and Becky Lynch for next week. Interesting segment. It was kind of interesting. Like, Paige is just lurking in the background, just looking at it. It was kind of an interesting one. Up next, you had an Andrade Cien Almas backstage segment with Sin Cara. Sin Cara comes up talking to him, like, playing it off like they were old buds and everything on that side. Wanted to talk to Andrade. Selena Vega comes in and starts berating the crap out of Sin Cara for even speaking to Andrade Cien Almas. You don't know this guy. You don't know who he is now or anything. Which will probably lead to some kind of match between Andrade Cien Almas and Sin Cara probably next week or something like that. I like how Sin Cara's like, dude, is it going to be like that? And it's like, he's just like, yeah, I'm going with her. Later. It was like one of those later moments. So decent stuff. SmackDown overall, I thought was pretty good. And the main event was really, really good. So we have Samoa Joe versus Big Cass and Daniel Bryan. Triple threat, last person going into the Money in the Bank ladder match on the men's side. And this was an extremely good match. Good teasing in all directions of who was going to win the match and who was it made it feel like every person was going to win at some point in time. Like even Big Cass was going to win, or Daniel Bryan was going to win, or eventually Samoa Joe was going to win. It gets towards the end of the match. Samoa Joe's outside the ring. Daniel Bryan has Big Cass in the middle of the ring. He's setting up for the big knee, hits the big knee. This has Samoa Joe enough time to come in, snatch up Daniel Bryan with the coquina clutch, and basically chokes him out to pick up the victory and go on to Money in the Bank. Extremely good match here. After the match, Daniel Bryan does get laid out by Big Cass again to continue on with that storyline and further along that storyline to go along with it. And they do announce it a little bit later in the week as well that Daniel Bryan versus Big Cass is gonna happen at Money in the Bank. So we got 2 new matches to Money in the Bank to go along with it, and the Money in the Bank contract matches are fully set. with a couple weeks left, so hopefully they can come up with some decent stories going into it, to play along with everything on that side of it, to go into that match. Overall, I enjoyed SmackDown this week. I thought it was an extremely good show. This week they did a really, really good job. SmackDown was really good. And this is going to bring us to NXT this week for May 30th, 2018. This NXT started with Aleister Black coming out, cutting a promo on who was going to be his next opponent. Basically, they haven't announced who his next opponent was going to be for TakeOver. He gets interrupted by Lars Sullivan, and he basically says really quickly that William Regal has made it official. It's going to be Lars Sullivan, based off of the handicap match from the week before. It's going to be Lars Sullivan versus Aleister Black for the NXT title. Now, before that, he did one line that he did say is like, it won't matter who it is. It will only take one kick, that big roundhouse kick that he does, to make his opponent fade to black. And so they kind of have a little bit back and forth, and eventually, Aleister Black does go for the Black Mass roundhouse kick, and Lars Sullivan just catches it and takes a look at it. It's like he's studying his foot, and you just have Aleister Black is like, what the heck just happened? We had a couple of those moments on this show. It's like, whoa, he caught the Black Mass super kick, the Black Mass roundhouse kick, and then he lays him out with the freak accident. I thought this was a pretty good segment. I thought this one came off really good. Up next, we had the War Raiders going up against George Hickson and Cody Vincent. Yeah, this was a rather extensive squash match, like one of those long squash matches. War Raiders won. They pulled off some extremely impressive moves. You have one of the War Raiders. I don't fully know them. I haven't watched too much of them yet. But you have one of the War Raiders holding him up in the heart attack variation for the other one, and the other War Raider did a springboard off the middle rope and did a kick to the other guy. I was like, whoa! It was like some really good stuff there. They were looking pretty good with everything that they were doing so far with the War Raiders at this point in time. So some interesting stuff. I'll be interested to see some more things with them. But they are very impressive with what they can do. Up next, we had a video package setting up for the night's main event, which was going to be Dakota Kai going up against Shayna Baszler, showing off everything that led into the match. You know, Shayna Baszler, tormenting Dakota Kai like she is. Shayna Baszler is in the head of Dakota Kai, so every time she sees her, she's like petrified to death and everything. So playing off the video package and then kind of leading up to the whole aspect that she's gonna get this match, and it looks like she's gonna be able to get past that and everything throughout that time. Up next, you had a interview from Lacey Evans, basically talking about that she's going to have her third match with Kairi Sane next week. They're 1-1 right now, and of course she playing it off with her right hand, calling it the woman's right, and everything. So kind of playing the confidence game up, going into her match next week with Kairi Sane again. Next, we had EC3 going up against Fabian Eichner, and this was a pretty good match. They did do an interesting thing in this match, and I wonder if they're going to do something before TakeOver with EC3 and Johnny Gargano in some way. Wow, that really does cause the glare to go up really high there. Because Johnny Gargano just comes out mid-match, and they've been talking throughout this entire show about the fact that, each guy has to sign their contract and everything to have this street fight with him and Tommaso Ciampa. They even say, even have Candice LeRae put a tweet out there saying, it's like, I don't agree with this. I don't want this. Why are they doing this type of thing? Throughout the show. And then Johnny Gargano just comes out. It's like, I've got my contract. It's signed, sealed, delivered, just leaves it, and it's like good to go. He just comes out mid-match and does this. I love how EC3 is like, what's going on? What just happened? And it was a little bit weird. And then eventually, like, he gets hit with a big crossbody, flying crossbody to the outside of the ring by Fabian Eichner, but it doesn't deter EC3, who does hit a couple of big moves, and the TKO, which I think he's calling the 1%er in WWE at this time, and picks up the victory. I thought it was a decent enough match, but it was a little bit weird that they did the thing with Johnny Gargano on there. Up next, you had a Bianca Belair video package, and this was good because it was showing her, showing who she was, how she was, and like her family history about she's bred for success, everything like that, everything on that side. Like, she kept it heelish, but she also kind of like said, like, this is what I had to overcome, and like she said her complacency is what she had to overcome. And she did it in a good heelish way as well. I thought this was a good thing, and it kind of gave you a little bit more about what Bianca Belair was. This was a really well done video package about her, and a really good interview, kind of getting to know a little bit more about what she is. Up next, you had Ricochet going up against Chris Dijak, and this was a very fast pace. It was a short, impactful match. Both guys doing some really impressive stuff inside this match, with Chris Dijak actually doing a springboard moonsault of his own in the match. He also did a very impressive Uranagi to Ricochet on the ring apron. Ricochet fights back in the match. Like, this was a really quick match. Hits the 630 senton to win the match. Like, I had seen some Ricochet stuff before. I've at least watched the first 2 seasons of... I watched the first 2 seasons of Lucha Underground and everything. So I'd seen some more stuff with Ricochet when he was doing stuff as Prince Puma, which he used that 630 splash as well. Or the 630 senton. It's some impressive stuff. He looks extremely impressive in this one. Afterwards, Ricochet cuts a promo on Velveteen Dream, basically for what he had done last week. He wants to challenge him to a match. Dream immediately interrupts him before he gets the challenge out. It says he can do anything that Ricochet can do, but only better. And he basically is like, okay, it's one of those bits of it's almost like one of those bits of him wanting to show him. And of course, Velveteen Dream is like, okay, I'm going to show you now. He's going to walk down. It's like, you know what? No, I've got a better idea. This place isn't good enough for this. The Dream will see you in Chicago. So basically, kind of making or looking to make the match at that time. They do announce it, like they have Regal announce it a little bit later, and as he's walking up to the ring and kind of looking at him, he goes like, "Remember, I'm going to show you in Chicago that I can do anything you can do, only better." And then, in what's got to be one of the most impressive things I've seen, Ricochet runs the ropes, flips over the ropes, and lands on his feet. Lands on his feet outside the ring, and still in mid-stride, walks up to Velveteen Dream, goes to his microphone, and is like, "Show me." Whoa. That was impressive. Some impressive stuff. And it's crazy. Like, if you have not seen the NXT bit, find the gif of it, because it's nuts for someone to be in the ring, do a flip over the rope, and just land on their feet outside the ring. That's insane. That's going to be like, at the way that this is looking right now, and it depends on what kind of story they tell in the match as well. That could be a really, really good match coming up at NXT TakeOver. I'm looking forward to that one, and I will hopefully they put on a really good match to go along with it. Up next was main event of the night, which was Dakota Kai going up against Shayna Baszler. this was a good story in the match. I actually liked the story that they were telling in this match. So throughout the entire match, Shayna Baszler is dismantling Dakota Kai. Throughout the entire match, like this time not focusing on the arm, but this time focusing on the ankle, like stomping on the ankle throughout the entire match, trying to take away the whole kick thing, the whole team kick side of everything that Dakota Kai does. And eventually, throughout that entire time, like Dakota Kai was even in an ankle lock for a good period of time, but it looked like she was getting toyed around with again. But eventually Dakota Kai fights back. It makes it look like she was gonna, she was getting somewhere with everything, but eventually gets caught with the Coquina clutch, the rear naked choke, and eventually does tap out in this match. I thought it was a pretty good match for what the story they were trying to tell was at that moment in time, and I thought it came off pretty good. But after the match was where things got pretty interesting. So Shayna Baszler wants to continue on with the attack afterwards, which causes Nikki Cross to come out and make the save. So Baszler goes to leave. She takes the title, everything on that side of it, and everything. But Nikki Cross runs up and takes the title from her, runs back into the ring with it, and she challenges Shayna Baszler to get in the ring. Baszler gets in the ring, looks like she's going to grab the title, but then Nikki Cross runs in and takes it again. It's like, and Nikki Cross, just like in her own way, is like, me, you for the title now, and doing like all her typical stuff that she does. And she's like, and Dakota, you're going to be the ref. And I love how Dakota Kai just plays along with it, raises the titles like, oh, this is going to be a title match. It's like, this is going to actually be a title match and everything, which it really was. And I like how the announcers did play it up. And it's like, so they go to that portion of it. Nikki Cross hits her finisher on Shayna Baszler. Dakota counts the fall, and Nikki Cross runs off with the title. As the announcers are like, "You're not the champion. You didn't win this. You're not the champion in any way, shape, or form. I don't know what's going on here." As they go off the air. So NXT and SmackDown this week I thought was really good shows. Raw was pretty decent, kind of ho-hum in certain areas, and you kind of wish they gave them a little bit longer for the women's gauntlet match as well. But overall, 3 pretty good shows this week for WWE. At least I felt like it. Raw was definitely on the low end of everything on this one, but the other 2 shows were just not much better, really. And like I said, Raw had some entertaining bits to it, but it felt like it was a holiday edition of Monday Night Raw to go along with that. Which, like on holidays, they're not really that good when it comes down to Monday Night Raw. This was probably one of the little bit better ones, like the women's gauntlet match had of consequence to it. The Seth Rollins Jinder Mahal match was really good. It also sets up for Elias and Seth Rollins at the Money in the Bank pay-per-view. So you got some really good stuff inside of there to go along with it. But you also had the typical holiday shenanigans as well with the B-Team Barbecue, though entertaining. Still your traditional like holiday, let's create a food fight. And are we going to get another food fight in a couple of months with July 4th again? So we'll see how that one ends up playing out as well, whenever that show does happen, or they are going to do anything about that like that at that time. Actually, I don't think July 4th falls on a Monday this year, so I don't think we have to really do anything. I don't think anything will be like that this time around. But yeah, that is basically everything for this week for GodSaw's Turnbuckle. We went through the news earlier in the show. We should be back again next week. I missed last week's out because of time constraints and everything. But overall, it'll be an interesting one leading into Money in the Bank. Also next week, if I have the time, I'm hoping to watch it before I do an episode of GodSaw's Turnbuckle next week, but we have New Japan's Dominion show going on next week, so hopefully maybe we get to talk about New Japan a little bit during next week's episode, or do I do a separate episode just going through that at that point in time, like a pay-per-view type review. because next week is the match with Kenny Omega going up against Okada, and the 2 out of 3 falls in there saying no time limit. So it'll be interesting to see where they go with that particular match at that point in time. So with that being said, everyone, I thank everybody in for tuning into the live portion of the episode of GodSaw's Turnbuckle this week. I hope you guys enjoy everything, and I just lost my train of thought. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. Take care, everyone, and have a great rest of your day.